Hello. It's been a while since the last time I've done a video, and I thought it was time for another opinion piece on a topic that I really need to comment on. That is the truth about SovCits. These people are the most irritating, counterproductive social rejects I have ever seen or heard about. They are a drain on society and should not be tolerated in any way, shape, or form. They need to be shut down and completely removed from law-abiding society and utterly abolished. But rather than my old way of pointing and laughing and verbally degrading them, I will instead use a more intellectual approach by doing a bit of basic research and sharing what I find. So let's get started. To begin, let's consider the very title of sovereign citizen. Sovereignty is defined as one or more of three things: government free from external control, royal authority, or the authority of a state to govern another state. In the case of sovereign rights, those rights must be supreme, preeminent, or undisputable. The other half of the title is the word citizen, which literally means a native or naturalized member of a state or country or other political community. In the U.S., a person is a resident of a state, but all residents of all states are citizens of the country of the United States of America. So let's answer the question that most people ask. Is it possible to claim sovereignty in your country of residence? Well, here's the simple answer. No. As tempting as it might be to declare your trailer a sovereign state, it will never happen, because customary international law actually does specify minimum standards for statehood. You must have a defined territory. A spot in a trailer park of a few hundred square feet does not constitute a territory. You must have a permanent population, which means that the entire population would need to have been born in your trailer, be raised there, and live their lives there, including everything that living life entails. And third, you must have a government, one that is recognized by all surrounding countries or states as being legitimate within the international community. In contrast, sovereign citizens are just a loose grouping of litigants, activists, tax protesters, financial scheme promoters, and conspiracy theorists who claim to be answerable only to their particular interpretations of the common law, and that they are therefore not subject to any government statutes or proceedings, unless they consent to them.
Look at them, they hurting me. What's your name, sir? And your badge number, please? It's right there. What is it? Why are you recording? You're under arrest. Officer, I don't consent. I don't consent for you to search my car, officer. Can you call Sergeant, please?
And who do we have to thank for it? Well, William Potter Gale, a Christian identity minister who spread the concept in 1971 in the Posse Comitatus. The early form of the movement was strongly associated with white supremacists and anti-Semitic ideologies. The movement is American in origin and exists primarily in the United States. It has since expanded to other countries, notably the free man on the land, an offshoot of the sovereign citizen movement with similar doctrines, which emerged during the 2000s in Canada before spreading to other Commonwealth countries. In the United States, the Federal Bureau of Investigation describes sovereign citizens as anti-government extremists who believe that they are separate or sovereign from the United States, even though they live in the country. The sovereign citizen phenomenon is one of the main contemporary sources of pseudo-law. Adherents to its ideology believe that courts have no actual jurisdiction over anyone, and that the use of certain procedures such as writing specific phrases on bills they do not want to pay and loopholes can make them immune from government laws and regulations. Their arguments, however, have absolutely no basis in law whatsoever and have never ever been successful in any court at any level. Although the majority of sovereign citizens are not violent, many will use pseudo-legal tactics in an attempt to ignore certain rules, to get out of debt, or to avoid such things as paying license fees and traffic tickets. However, the methods advocated by the movement never work. They are completely illegal and fully warrant prosecution. Surveys conducted in 2014 and 2015 show that the representatives of U.S. law enforcement ranked the risk of terrorism from the sovereign citizen movement higher than the risk from any other group, including Islamic terrorists, militias, racist skinheads, neo-Nazis, and radical environmentalists. The New South Wales Police Force in Australia has also identified sovereign citizens as a potential terrorist threat. SovCits believe that the current government is a corporation and that people are secretly under a form of commercial law, which leads them to consider that statutory law is a contract binding people to the state. Another common belief among SovCits is that they can opt out of the purported contract, hence making themselves immune from the laws that they do not wish to abide by simply declining to consent. The behavior of sovereign citizens during traffic stops, in courtrooms, and other public spaces is documented by many online videos that generally end in defeat for them. This has led some members of the public to consider sovereign citizens a source of amusement and public ridicule. Hundreds, if not thousands, of sovereign citizens have been imprisoned as a result of their actions. American sovereign citizens posit that they can become immune to most or all laws of the United States by renouncing citizenship in a federal corporation and declaring only to be a citizen of the state where they reside. This process, which they refer to as expatriation, involves filing or delivering a non-legal document claiming their renunciation of citizenship to any court clerk's office that can be convinced to accept it. On the contrary, Moorish sovereign citizens consider that African Americans constitute an elite class within American society, with special rights and privileges that make them immune from federal and state authority. They will commonly adopt Africanized versions of their names by adding L or Bey or a combination of the two and associate themselves with a particular Moorish group, claiming that they are not culpable for acts committed under their previous name and that their affiliation makes them immune from prosecution. One belief is that the Moors were America's original inhabitants and are therefore entitled to be self-governing. They claim to be descendants of the Moroccan Moors and to be thus subject to the 1787 treaty between the United States and Morocco, which grants them immunity from U.S. law, an argument which has never held up in any court at any level. Some may claim to occupy United Nations Indigenous Peoples Seat 215 and create their own birth certificates and passports in addition to driver's licenses and vehicle registrations. Unfortunately for them, there is no such thing as United Nations Indigenous Peoples Seat 215. My research showed that it is a reference to a fictitious indigenous group called the Ouachita Nation. The Ouachita Nation is an African-American group associated with the Moorish Science Temple of America, who claim to be a sovereign state of the Native Americans within the boundaries of the United States of America. It was headed by Verdia C. Hampton Gostin. She was mayor of Richmond, Louisiana in 1975 and 1976, and again from 1980 to 1984. And is the author of the 1993 self-published book Return of the Ancient Ones, in which Gostin asserted that the United Nations registers the Ouachita as Indigenous Peoples number 215. Various United States courts have held that the Ouachita Nation is fictional and that it has not been recognized as a sovereign nation. Another recurring idea in sovereign citizen ideology is that individuals have two personas, one of flesh and blood, and the other a separate, secret, legal personality commonly called the straw man, created upon each person's birth that is subject to the government. Sovereign citizens claim that it is possible to disassociate oneself from the straw man through the use of certain procedures, thus becoming free of all debts, liabilities, and legal constraints. Using arguments that rely on exacting definitions and word choice, sovereign citizens may assert a constitutional right to travel in a conveyance, distinguishing it from driving an automobile in order to justify ignoring requirements for license plates, vehicle registration, insurances, and driver's licenses. The right to travel is claimed based on a variety of passages, some being more commonly used among groups. One common argument from sovereign citizens is that they are traveling and not driving because they are not transporting commercial goods or paying passengers. This stems from a total misuse and misunderstanding of the Uniform Commercial Code, or UCC, first published in 1952, which is one of a number of uniform acts that have been established as law with the goal of harmonizing the laws of sales and other commercial transactions across the United States through UCC adoption by all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the territories of the United States. If you read it carefully, you can plainly see that it has absolutely nothing to do with state law enforcement with regard to their jurisdiction to enforce local laws within their state. Traffic laws and related laws are state laws and have absolutely nothing to do with the UCC. Sovereign citizens' arguments that they do not need driver's licenses, license plates, and vehicle insurances have never ever been held up in court. One common response to this claim from U.S. law enforcement is that while anyone is free to travel by foot, by bike, or even by horse, operating a motor vehicle is an entirely different matter, as it is a complex activity that requires training and licensure. Several United States Supreme Court rulings state that driver's licenses and traffic regulations are necessary for public safety. A driving license shows awareness about the traffic rules. No matter in which country a person drives, he always has to abide by the traffic rules and regulations. The driving license is a stamped evidence to show that you are conscious about traffic regulations and you will make all possible efforts to follow them. A driving license lightens the burden of risk. Every time a person sits in the driver's seat, he or she not only has personal responsibility, but also for the other people who might be walking on the roadside or driving on the same road. The driving license helps to reduce the burden of accidents and injuries because it ensures that you have been trained well to drive in a public area. The right to travel argument often leads to other moronic claims, like, it's not a car, it's household goods. So let's have a closer look at that, shall we? A car is a personalty, meaning personal property, not household goods. Household goods must be containable within the house as part of the living space, such as a sofa in a living room or an oven in a kitchen. This then leads to the claim that putting it into a garage makes it household goods. So, is a home garage considered indoors or part of a household? Again, the answer is absolutely not. as space is considered living space or bedroom if it is fully enclosed, insulated, and has egress windows. A residential garage is a walled, roofed structure for storing a vehicle or vehicles that may be part of or attached to a home, an attached garage, or a separate outbuilding or shed, a detached garage. But it cannot be considered as part of a household because it does not meet the requirements of a legal living space. Sovereign citizens often use irregular documents and flawed or invented legal arguments as proof of their claims. Pseudo-legal documents will use an unusual vocabulary and twist the meaning of legal terms or even commonplace phrases according to their own convenience. When faced with litigation in a court of law, the first thing they do is try the admiralty or maritime law argument to try and convince the court that they have no power. Admiralty law or marine law is a body of law that governs nautical issues and private maritime disputes. Admiralty law consists of both domestic law and maritime activities, and private international law governing the relationship between private parties operating or using ocean-going vessels. Admiralty law may be distinguished from the law of the sea, which is a body of public international law dealing with navigational rights, mineral rights, jurisdiction over coastal waters, and the maritime relationships between nations. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea has been adopted by 167 countries and the European Union, and disputes are resolved at the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea in Hamburg, Germany. Finally, we can't forget the tactic of the avalanche of pseudo-legal documents and arguments claiming that one is personally immune from jurisdiction or should not be paying taxes which have never ever been accepted by any court. In 1990, after Andrew Schneider was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison for making a threat by mail, he argued that he was a free sovereign citizen and therefore was not subject to the jurisdiction of the federal courts. That argument was rejected by the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit as having no conceivable validity in American law. Unfortunately, sovereign citizens' tactics often succeed in delaying legal proceedings and may occasionally confuse or exhaust public officials. However, their arguments are never upheld in court. Their claims have been consistently rejected by courts in various countries, including the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Mark Pickavage, a researcher working for the Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism, has summed up sovereign citizen ideology as magical thinking. The point to remember is that whatever illogical route they take to get there, there is no point in trying to find consistency or a rational pattern in the beliefs. Sovereign citizens reject the current federal, state, and local governments and consider themselves outside their authority. Ironically enough, at the same time, they file paper after paper with the very courts whose legitimacy they deny, seeking to vindicate their common law rights. SovCits scream constantly that they are not a citizen of the corporation called the United States and are outside U.S. laws. Yet they are also the first to scream for the right to the same government benefits and services as law-abiding citizens. And this is where I will end this video. I would like to reiterate that my research was just a cursory one, but during that research, I began to realize just how much of this iceberg still lurks beneath the surface. In my opinion, these so-called SovCits are socially disruptive domestic terrorists and traitors to everything that a law-abiding society stands for. Personally, I think of them as nothing more than a stain on the countries they reside in. They are often unashamed grifters and low-life degenerate simpletons. They are literally victims of their own stupidity. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I thank you all for watching. Please help me out and hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. And I hope I will meet some of you on my weekly live stream, The Real Reason, every Saturday at 2 p.m. GMT. Until then, Sin Chow.